You might want to go ahead and adjust your volume a little bit. Holy fucking shit! Not only did they release the release date for Season 8, which is April 14th, so mark your calendars. I've got like 16 notifications on my phone turned on. But they also gave us like a 1.5 minute teaser, a proper teaser, for me to break down. Without any further ado, let's get into it. This video will contain spoilers for Game of Thrones Season 8. Before we get started, please slap a like on this video, make sure you're subscribed, and then make sure every notification's turned on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. And don't worry, the long night's almost over. Okay, so first things first, I feel like I need to go ahead and say this, and it kind of makes me go back and look at every single message that I was sent from this person. But about a month ago, right after we got that Dragonstone teaser, I received a DM over on Twitter. Speaking of which, make sure you go follow me at Sir_Hunts. But this person mentioned how they had some insider information. They gave me a detailed backstory of how they got this information, and then they proceeded to tell me that the second teaser we'd be getting had to do something with the Crypts of Winterfell and the Starks finding a deadly presence down there, i.e. that being the Night King. Now that's not exactly what happened, but it's pretty damn close. Now this trailer, or this teaser, it's really kind of a trailer. Now obviously there's not going to be a scene that's going to be exactly like this in Season 8. This was more or less just a little scene they filmed to give us a tease of the season and also to mainly announce the actual date for Season 8, which once again is April 14th. That aside, it starts out with Jon Snow and he walks past a statue of his mother, Lyanna Stark. A feather falls to the ground, and we quickly realize this is the feather that Bobby B placed in her hand way back in Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 1. We then get a voiceover of Lyanna, Jon Snow's mother, and it's that scene that Bran was witness to, which was basically the birth of Jon Snow in the Tower of Joy. We hear Lyanna telling him to protect him. You have to protect him is exactly what she said, and the symbolism of the feather falling to the ground, that to me represents the death of Robert, and that's in the past. The idea that Jon Snow had to hide his true identity of who he was in order so that he wouldn't be killed as a boy by Robert Baratheon if he were to ever find out Jon Snow's true lineage, which is that his parents are Rhaegar and Lyanna. Lyanna is someone that Robert was obsessed with. But in my opinion, the symbolism there is that the idea that Jon Snow can no longer embrace who he truly is dead. It's part of his past, which is why it falls behind him. Another interesting sort of symbolism that we get there is, if you'll remember, when Bran initially tries to call out to Ned when he says Dad at the Tower of Joy scene, Ned turns around the exact same way that Jon Snow does. It's almost sort of like they're symbolizing that Jon can warg in these moments, and he's like, Bran. Speaking of Bran, that was the one question I kept asking myself in the trailer, which was, where the hell is Bran? These are clearly all the Starks. We get to see Jon Snow, we get to see Arya Stark, we get to see Sansa Stark. Where's Bran? I figured he would pop up at the very end, but he doesn't, and instead the Night King does. More on that in a second. The next part of the trailer, it sort of gets a lot more sinister, as in the entire tone of the music switches up and it gives you these ominous vibes like, uh-oh, the fact that Jon Snow's lineage is behind him, or him hiding his lineage rather, you know, with that feather symbolizing Robert and the hiding of the truth. When we get that more sinister music tone and Sansa shows up, it kind of makes me wonder if she isn't going to play the game a little bit when it comes to revealing Jon Snow's lineage next season. I'm not exactly sure how yet, but maybe you guys could speculate further for me down in the comments section. Now, as Sansa begins her slow-mo walk in the Crypts of Winterfell, we hear the voice of Catelyn Stark, and she mentions how all of this horror has come to her family just because she couldn't love a motherless child. That motherless child being Jon Snow. In Catelyn Stark's mind back in, I think it was Season 3, obviously before she dies, before the Red Wedding, but she mentions to Talissa, Robb Stark's wife, okay, then that puts it at Season 3, Episode 2, it's all coming back to me now, but she mentions to her that she once prayed for Jon Snow's death, and she thinks that all of this negative shit that's happening to her family right now is all because she prayed death to happen or to come to Jon Snow. Now this scene never actually happened in the books, and I think Dan and Dave included it in the show to add more depth to Catelyn's character. In the books, and a bit so in the show, she comes off as a bit of a controversial character, there we go, making us feel for her more and giving her a more complex background. Now I'm really not sure why they play this line as Sansa's walking slow-mo. Maybe they're trying to insinuate to us that Sansa will be picking up that role and she's going to be wishing death upon Jon Snow, except for that's not going to happen. I think more so the motherless child bit is more so referring to Arya, and that's why that scene of them walking slow-mo split between the two, and when Catelyn gets to the line of motherless child, we see Arya, and we realize the depth of her character, the journey that her character has been on, is partly due to the fact that she does not have either parent to help guide her in the right direction. And then things really start to heat up in this trailer. We cut back to Jon Snow, and he walks slow-mo again, but he walks past the statue of Ned. Ned mentions to him, or we get that voiceover clip in the scene from season 1 where Ned tells Jon Snow, "You may not have my name, but you're a Stark. You have my blood." Now you see, I gotta pause right there for a second from that trailer. In my mind, when you hear scenes like this and when you think of the bigger picture, it would be the best if Jon Snow never really finds out his true lineage. Wouldn't that be kind of poetic? I mean, the real big mystery is more so for the readers. In Jon Snow, the characters, both book and television show, him finding out his true lineage is not going to really direct him off of the path that he's on right now. He is dead in the books, but even when he eventually gets resurrected, he's still going to be on the same path, which is fighting the undead, fighting the Night King, making sure the Seven Realms is safe, not ruling it. And I know I've swayed back and forth on this, and there's a possibility that Jon will want to sit the Iron Throne in the books and the television show. I just can't really see it right now, and I definitely don't think that him finding out his lineage, that he's a true Targaryen, and that he has a claim to the Iron Throne, will make him want to pursue it more. I feel like the only thing that would make him sit the Iron Throne in the end is if Daenerys dies, or if he's forced to, meaning that everybody that's close to him sort of tells him that if he doesn't do it, then the kingdom will be thrown into chaos again. The kingdom would represent or respect him as the bastard who rose up the ranks of the Night's Watch, allied himself with the Dragon Queen, and together they defeated the Night King and the army, the greatest threat Westeros has ever faced. Basically, I feel like if he was convinced by his peers, that's the only way he'd sit the Iron Throne, and him finding out his lineage will have nothing to do with him making the decision. And then just sort of moving things along here, this part of the trailer is where everything comes to a head. We have Jon Snow, Arya Stark, and Sansa Stark all meeting in the hallway. They meet together and then sort of form a single file line and start heading down the hallway, and we notice that they see something strange is forming at the end of the hallway. This is the storm that follows the Night King. Now, before this storm actually goes down, they walk up to these statues, the statues of themselves. And to those of us watching are just as confused as they are. They're alive, and traditionally the only people who have statues in the Crypts of Winterfell are those of the Starks that have died. And more traditionally, it's usually just Starks that held the title of Lord of Winterfell, and then back in the day, King of Winterfell. It was breaking tradition when Ned built Lyanna a statue down there, so it's interesting to have a statue of Jon, who's currently still alive, even though he did die in the past, but the fact that there's a statue of Arya and Sansa is even more intriguing. I think mainly this is just done just like the Hall of Faces. If you guys remember back before we got season 6, we actually were shown promo photos. I think it was a bit of a clip, but basically we saw every single character who had ever been in Game of Thrones having their face hung on the Wall of Faces at the House of Black and White down in Bravos. And when they did that, everyone, myself included, was a little bit disturbed as to why this would happen, because there were a lot of characters who were still alive, and were they confirming to us that they'd be dead? Well, no, they just like messing with our heads. So this, in my opinion, is the same thing that's going on with this Jon Snow, Sansa, and Arya statue. But back to what I was saying earlier about Bran. Where the hell is Bran? Why is Bran not present at all in this trailer? This is about the Starks. I mean, it is called the Crypts of Winterfell. Bran is a Stark, so why is he not? Wait, no, that's not true. Bran is not a Stark. Bran is a three-eyed raven. I kind of felt like the first time watching this trailer that Bran might be giving Jon, Sansa, and Arya some sort of vision. Just a little bit of like what he deals with in the Weirwood net. Now, clearly that's not the case. And when the trailer first dropped, some of the early comments I saw over on the YouTube video, which I've linked down below in the description, but someone had mentioned, hey, Bran's not there because there was no handicap access to the Crypts of Winterfell. But to be honest, I think the main reason why they didn't include Bran in this trailer is, for one, to make sure that we can focus on the three characters that are there, which are Jon Snow, Arya, and Sansa. It's a little bit easier to wrap our heads around three characters at once, and I feel like Bran is going to have his own promo coming up. He's on a different playing field than the rest of the members of his house, and I think it would be more special if he were to get his own promo trailer with maybe a pairing of the Night King. Which brings me to the point where I want to bring up another leak that was sent to me by the same person who told me we'd be getting a trailer that pretty much is exactly what went down. They claim that in the end, or by the end of the series, Bran will realize that the only way to defeat the Night King is very similar to the way that he killed Hodor, and that's by going back to when the Night King was first created and then warging into his mind. This inevitably causes the Night King to lose control of his entire army, and everyone starts to drop dead. The White Walkers shatter. This allows Jon Snow and Daenerys to swoop in and burn the Night King alive on the back of Drogon. Now, I know, that sounds like a load of horse crap fan fiction, but remember, this is the same person who told us exactly how this promo trailer would go down. But getting back on track here, this promo teaser, the Crypts of Winterfell, comes to a head when all three of the Starks meet, and then once they realize that storm is coming in, Jon Snow and Arya draw their swords. Now, I do have one gripe here, and that is, Sansa, what the flying fuck? You don't even have a dagger or something you could pull out? You're just gonna literally sit there and allow them to save your motherfucking life? Are you serious? Come on, pick up a damn sword, Bran. Teach this girl how to fight. You can't use your words as weapons when the Night King's coming at you with an ice spear. One last little significance that I noticed, or one little thing that I'll point out of significance that I noticed before we get out of here, is that the fog rolls past these statues, which in the TV show as well as in the books, they're known as the Kings of Winter, or the former Kings of Winterfell. If you do a little bit of research, you'll find out that they were basically the inhabitants of Winterfell after Bran the Builder raised up Winterfell around the same time he was building the wall. Now, there's a bit more mystery to them. A lot of people think that the iron swords that are laid across their lap keep their spirits dormant and prevents a great evil from rising in the crypts, and I think this is why the showrunners know this, and this is why they're sort of playing on that theory that, you know, Bran is absent from this trailer. Maybe he could be, a lot of people think he's the Night King. Maybe people think that he's being used as a puppet of the Night King, and I feel like Dan and Dave may be playing with that notion a little bit, which is why they had the fog roll past the Kings of Winter, just to sort of mess with our heads a little bit. You guys let me know what you think about that down below in the comment section. Alright, and with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this double dose of Sir Hunts today. If you did, slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 1,420. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and then make sure every notifications turned on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Super special shout out to every single person watching this video right now, and super special shout out to every single member of my Patreon over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunts Reviews. Remember, set your date for April 14th. Me, myself, I'm probably gonna sleep until then.